Hi, I'm Chelsea of Friday Pattern Company, and today we have a super fun video for you where we wanted to put together a video where we share just some ideas for things you can make with your scraps and things that make these projects all make really great gifts, but they also make just fun things to make for you. We have like mini tutorials for each of them, and there's 3 projects. I'm gonna lead you through 2 of them, and Paige has one for you as well. So it's we're gonna make this really cool patchwork scarf that is made from just like whatever kind of light to mid-weight wovens that you might have laying around. Then we have a little apron that I used denim for, and it works good with any sort of like more sturdy fabric. So I'd say like mid to heavyweight fabrics, but you could probably make it out of like a cotton, just like a lightweight cotton as well. It would just be a different type of apron. The 3rd project is a really cute rope bowl that you make using your scraps. And yeah, these projects are all super fun. They're things that you could do in an afternoon, and hopefully they get you inspired to make handmade gifts, because handmade gifts are the best. I think receiving them and giving them is really beautiful because it's something that someone can treasure because you made it specific for them, and you don't have to, spend money or buy new things to make beautiful gifts. So let's get started. Here I have my pieces cut out. I have 5 of these pieces that are 4.5 inches wide and 16.5 inches long. I have 5 of these pieces that are 8.5 inches by 4.5 inches, and then I have another 5 of that same size. And then you need a backing. So this, you need to have 8.5 inches by 80.5 inches. And I have this is 8.5 inches wide, and then it's the full width of the fabric. And I'm just gonna have to piece these together to get that length. Yeah, and those are the pieces that you need. Your next step is to take your shorter pieces and sew them together along one short end, just right sides together, and then press those seams open. Okay, so now these pieces are going to be sewn together, right sides together, and you want to alternate. I'm just kind of marking where, so that is going, oh, I got 2 layers on that. So that is going to go like that, and then we'll do this one right sides together, and this is going to go like on this side. So that when these are, I'll show you that's open, and then we want it to alternate. So just as you pin them together, I'm just marking, I'm gonna sew on the side that has the clip. So, dun-dun-dun. You should have 5 sets. So after you have them all set up so that you know which side you're going to be stitching them on, you'll just stitch them along this one long end, and you'll use that 1/4 inch seam allowance again. Okay, so here I have my 2 piles. So there's 2 that are sewn this way, and then there's 3 that are sewn this way. I just have them separated so that I know, because you want to alternate so that when they get sewn together, you're having, the pattern is repeating. So you want it to be, this side facing up, and then these guys opposite each other. So these are going to go right sides together along this short end, and then we'll go back and forth. Okay, here that is pieced together, and I've got all of the seams pressed open, and now we're going to pin it right sides together with the backing. Okay, so these are stitched together right sides together all the way around the scarf, and then I left a little like 5-inch opening so that now I can flip this right side out through this opening, and then I'm just going to give it a good press. Okay, so here is the scarf. You've got lots of length, and it's cute. Like when it gets twisted up, sometimes you'll get a flash of just the backing or the front. The only thing left to do is to add some quilting stitches, which I think I'll do some by hand on the couch, and then also sew that little part shut on that you left open. So in the end, I ended up machine quilting this, and I just stitched around the border and then up the center on both sides of the patchwork, and then also just at each intersection. I used a top stitching thread. I used Mara 70, the Gutermann thread, which is my favorite top stitching thread because it is thick enough to give you these like articulated stitches, but it is not so thick that you can't put it in your bobbin, which I know some people say is not allowed, but I put Mara 70 in my bobbin and it works out fine. And I used a 3.5 millimeter stitch length. So yeah, this could be stitched by hand. You could do as much or as little actual stitching on the scarf as you want, but I like the way this looks and it was a lot faster than doing it by hand. So we've got our Ilford jacket pockets and I've kind of thought about like a rough layout that I want to do. And so this I think is kind of what I'm thinking. I think this would be cute. And then just keep in mind these pockets have a seam allowance in the pattern piece, so they're going to be a little bit smaller, and I'm going to obviously play with the placement once I have them sewn up and ready to attach. But yeah, you can reference the video on how to sew these pockets. I'm going to cut them out and then I'll go over my process of sewing them. But there are some tricks, like, you know, if you're making this pencil pocket, you'll sew it onto this before this gets sewn down and so on. So I'm going to cut these out and then we'll meet at the sewing machine. Okay, so now we're going to prep this rectangle, which is the base of our apron, I'm going to press each side under a 1/2 inch and then a 1/2 inch again. I'll do the top and bottom and then I'll do the sides. You can do it in whatever order, but yeah, I'm just gonna prep those and then we'll have basically just like a rectangle of fabric that's finished on 4 sides. Okay, so here is that rectangle finished. You can see it on the back. I just folded it over and sewed, and now I'm going to sew the pockets. You can watch the Ilford jacket pocket video for instructions on how to do those, and then we will place them onto our rectangle. Okay, so here's like what the rough layout of the pockets is gonna be. I know that I need to press this edge under and top stitch it to this pocket, so I'm gonna do that first. Okay, so that is sewn on. Now I'm going to press the edges of each of these pockets under. Okay, here is my pocket layout, and I don't know if you can see, but I made like an iron crease, this like center line, so that I can kind of orient, even though my pockets are not symmetrical, I want them to have this like symmetrical spacing. So I'm kind of placing things the same amount from the center line, and then I'm making sure these side pieces are similar distances from the side, just to give it balance. And then now with this stacking, you're gonna wanna sew the lowest pocket first. So I'm gonna sew this pocket down, I'll remove that, and then also this pocket down. And then parts of the pockets are just gonna be, because they have another pocket top stitched on them, like there's gonna be a stitch right here on this pocket, so it won't be, it'll be kind of almost divided. And then on this one, because this pocket will get sewn on top of it, it's going to be like this, that this pocket will then only have that use and this use, which on an apron, I think it's actually kind of nice to have more division. So I'm going to get started by making little marks at these corners so that I know where to put the pockets back. And then I'm going to pin this pocket and this pocket in place to top stitch them down. Okay, we got these 2 pockets down, and now I'm going to pin these in place. I have little corner marks marking where the corner of the pocket goes, so I'll just pin those back in place and stitch these on. Okay, so for the ties, I've got cotton webbing. You could use whatever kind of sturdy thing that you have. You could also sew like strips of scrap fabric or denim or whatever. So the way I'm gonna attach it is, I've got my corner here. I'm gonna fold the raw edge of my webbing under about like a 1/2 inch, and then I'm going to just sew it on the face. And I'm going to, you could align it with the top, but this little corner is like the thickest chunk of fabric, and I don't really want to stitch over it again, especially through 2 layers of webbing. So I'm going to place it just below the seam, and then I'm going to do a rectangle seam here just to give it a lot of strength. And I'll repeat that on both sides. Here is the apron. It's so cute. and just kind of tie it however back here. It's kind of, the webbing is a little bit stiff, but it still works. I would maybe use like a wide twill tape if you had it, or something that is a little bit less stiff, but other than that, I love it. Put your little pop that in there. Put your like beeswax in there. Super cute.
Hey, it's Paige here, and here's the scraps that I'm going to be using for this project, and I'm also using some macrame yarn. And first thing I wanted to do was just give my fabric a press, because where it had been in a scrap bag it was all creasy. And then I'm cutting strips 1.5 inches wide, just super long strips, whatever width of fabric that you have. Obviously we're using up scraps here, so your scraps will look ever so slightly different to mine, but I'm just cutting a load of 1.5 inch wide strips. Once I had a variety of strips of fabric, I then opened out my macrame yarn, and then we can get to prepping the basket. So to start it off, what you want to do is use a little bit of fabric glue if you have it. If not, you can just use pins and clips to hold it in place. So I'm gluing a tiny bit over the end of the macrame yarn, folding it around so that it hides that raw edge, and then kind of twisting it and wrapping it so that you get a nice neat starting point on your macrame yarn. Then you can start wrapping your strip around the macrame yarn at a slight diagonal so that you get something that looks like this, and then we're turning it into a circle. Think of like a little snail shell. That's kind of the vibe or the look of what you're creating at this starting point. Twist it around, use some clips or pins to hold it in place, and what you'll get is this little circle that needs to be really tight, no air holes around each of the sides, and do as much as you can. I managed to wrap it round about 4 or 5 times before I felt like it was probably time to stop. And once you've got a circle that looks a little bit like this, with lots of clips and pins holding it in place, you can head over to your sewing machine, and we're going to do a kind of spider web of stitching using a straight stitch across this little circle. And this is going to be the base of your bowl, so you need this little circle to be really strong and secure. So I'm doing a straight stitch across the entire circle, and this is the first stitch and what it looks like. They're going to repeat the process across the other side, and you're doing it so it looks like a little star slash spider's web, kind of like this. Need to keep doing that and repeating the process. I used black thread for this project just because I wanted to be able to show you guys, you know, in detail what that looks like, but you can obviously match your thread colour to your project. I chose fabrics from my scrap pile that kind of had similar colours in it, and obviously you won't see the prints at the end, but you'll see the colours kind of poking through. And then I changed my machine to a wide zigzag, about 5 width and 2, I think it was like 2 in length. And then the trickiest bit is doing it around this like little circle, but you want to zigzag holding the pieces of macrame yarn together, and you're stitching the zigzag in between each piece of macrame yarn so it kind of holds it together, pulling it really tightly. This is where I got to. So to get the curve of the bowl, you need to do the base for as much as you want. I'd say I did it about 20 or so times, and maybe even 30 times, and then you lift the macrame flat circle upwards towards the edge of your sewing machine, and you continue stitching, and it gives the bowl a curve shape. And you just continue stitching until you're happy with the size of the bowl that you have, and then finish it off by wrapping it around the edge of the macrame yarn and stitching it in place. You'll end up with something that looks a little bit like this, a little bit raggedy, so you want to trim off all of the little threads, give it a little haircut, cut off as much as or as little as you want. Obviously you can have it rustic looking, but I trimmed off as much as I could. And I then used a little bit of Mod Podge. This is optional, but I just used a paintbrush to paint some Mod Podge on the inside and the outside of the bowl around the center circle and then around the edges, just to give it a little bit of strength and to make sure that all the threads were glued down and that everything was kind of secure and in place. And this was the finished result. It's so cute. You could even go even bigger with this. You could go really small depending on what scraps you have. And it's the perfect little gift or even a little treat for yourself for your sewing room to pop all your bits and bobs in. And I'm so pleased with it. I hope you enjoyed mine and Chelsea's scrap project ideas. Let us know in the comments if you'd like to see more videos like this, and make sure to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Thanks so much for watching. See you guys next time. Bye.